This conference will now be recorded.
But just in case if I forget, okay? So let me have a quick recap as I do every time, okay? Let me quickly recap as to what we have done yesterday, guys. So we started discussing about the controllers yesterday, okay? So we started discussing about the simple controller, okay? So wherein it doesn't have any purpose other than just grouping, okay? Next we started working on the transaction controller, okay? It is not just for grouping, but it has a purpose wherein it will give you the response times on the transactional level, not just on the sampler level, but on the transaction level as well. You just want it on the transaction level, you can certainly get it by using certain options. Then we discussed about the loop controller, okay? So wherein certain number of times it will loop through, if you put certain samplers in the loop controller and say I want to execute for, let's say, 5 iterations, it will do it will do it for you for those 5 iterations, all the samplers which are there in the loop controller. And then finally we have discussed about something called time. What was the last controller, guys? Anybody could remember? Runtime controller. Okay, so what was the runtime controller, right? Yeah, runtime controller. Okay, so the last one was the runtime controller. Okay, so wherein it will execute for a certain period of time. Let's say you have given 10 seconds, or maybe let's say 20 seconds. It will execute for 20 seconds. Let's say there are 10 samplers. Okay, and let's say in the 20 seconds only 7 samplers, okay, it can complete. Okay, so you have given in the runtime controller 20 seconds. So in the 20 seconds, okay, so let's assume in that 20 seconds, okay, in the 20 seconds only 7 samplers can be executed. Now you tell me, option 1, will it execute 7 samplers, or option 2, will it execute 10 samplers? Option 1 or option 2? Quickly, guys. Okay, so the runtime controller, let's say the time that you have given is 20 seconds. In that 20 seconds, it could execute only, let's say, 7 samplers. But overall, you have put 10 samplers in that controller. Will it execute seven samplers? Option 1 or option 2, 10 samplers? Quickly, guys, all of you. 7 or 10? Okay, option 1, Date. Okay, wonderful. So it will execute only the 7 samplers because it will execute for that period of time. Okay, so let's suppose in this 15 seconds itself, okay, 15 seconds itself, it could execute all the 10 samplers. It will execute all the 10 samplers. Then what it will do? Will it not do anything for the next 5 seconds, or it will go back and start executing the second iteration? First option is it will not do anything, for the remaining 5 seconds, because you have given overall 20 seconds. In the 15 seconds, it was able to execute all the 10 samplers. So the remaining 5 seconds, it will not do anything. That's the first option. Or it will go back and execute the second iteration, option 2. Quickly, guys. Option 1 or option 2? Option 2. Okay, that we have seen visually. We have seen that yesterday. So today we'll talk about the other controllers, guys. Okay, these other controllers may not be that much useful, to be honest, but it will be useful when they ask you certain interview questions. Okay, so I would want you to concentrate. Today we will try to wrap up all the controllers possible. Okay, if not, we'll continue tomorrow, and then tomorrow we'll start with the timers, guys. Okay. Now, wonderful, guys. So we are looking into the throughput controller. So you see, the throughput is the output, and it typically, if we have looked at in the LoadRunner, throughput usually is the output, hits per second is the input. The throughput controller, okay, you might get confused. It will drive the output, or it will control the output, or it will say how much output you should achieve. It will try to give you that kind of output. That's a misnomer, as you said. This is a misnomer. It does not control the throughput, to be honest. I don't know why they name this controller as a throughput, because it does not control the output. Okay, so it will control the input as to how many number of executions you could have. Okay, it doesn't actually control the output. It controls the input as to how much executions, how many number of executions you could have is what it will control. Okay, so this throughput controller you could configure in 2 ways. One is the number of executions, one is the percentage of executions. Okay, now let's carefully look at this, guys. So instead of me going through it, I'll be able to explain this better if I am if I'm taking some example or explain it on the Jmeter console itself. Let me open the recent ones. What was it? I think this is the recent one. Yesterday we were playing around with this. Yes. Okay. Okay. So let's look at this one. Let's try to put a throughput controller over here. We had a runtime controller. So instead of a runtime controller, I will change this to a throughput controller. Okay, a throughput controller. So this is a throughput controller. Let's name it as throughput controller itself. Okay. So just to make the things easier for us to understand, I'm changing the name to throughput controller itself. Okay. And you see, okay, percentage of executions or total executions. Let's look at the total executions. Okay. So total executions, I would say, okay. Oh, this is again in the transaction controller, is it? Okay, fine, let it be there. Instead of putting all this in the transaction controller, so let me move this everything into the throughput controller. Hang on, guys. Let me delete this one. Just I'm deleting the transaction controllers, guys, so that I can explain this better. That's about it. Okay, and let's order it correctly. 38, 39, 40, 34. Okay, 35 and 36, 37, 38, 39, 40. Okay, now all I have is the samplers inside the throughput controller. Okay, all I have is samplers. How many samplers are there? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 samplers are there. Let me put all these 7 samplers in the throughput controller so that I can explain this throughput controller better. You know, if I have the transaction controllers again in these throughput controllers, it will be little hard for you to understand. That's the only purpose as to why I have deleted all the transaction controllers. Even though you have the transaction controllers inside the throughput controllers, it's totally okay, but you will not be able to totally understand as to how exactly the throughput controller is working, and that's the reason why I have actually deleted it. Okay, so not too many students have joined today. Maybe they're thinking that it's half an hour late. That could be the issue. So let me send the reminder again. Okay. So just quickly says, okay. So now you see you have put the throughput controller and total on the throughput you see total number of executions. Let's say, okay, the total number of executions is 3. Okay, total number of executions is 3. Let's see what happens. Okay, let's see what happens to what happens inside what you have it in the throughput controller. Let's see what happens. Okay, now what I will do is, you know, this whole thing, okay, login, throughput controller and logout, this whole thing, and let me execute this for 5 iterations. Let me execute this for 5 iterations, okay, which means that all the samplers here will be executed 5 times, all the samplers which are there in the logout should be executed 5 times, and all the samplers which are there in the throughput, you are expecting it to execute for 5 times, but let's see how many times the samplers which are there in the throughput will be executed. Okay, now we'll watch the view results tree. Okay, for now I'll delete all these listeners. Okay, so that you know it becomes easy for me to look at as to what is happening. Okay, now let me execute this, guys, as to what is happening. You expect everything to be executed 5 times. Okay, so watch carefully. Launch as executed, login as executed. Okay, now the complete execution has done. Let's study as to what has happened over here. So launch and login has executed. Okay, in launch there are 2 samplers, it is executed. Login there is 1 sampler, it's executed. All good and fine. Then it started executing the throughput controller. In the throughput controller you said 3. Let's see what that 3 represents. Okay, now in the throughput controller how many samplers are there? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 samplers are there. All the 7 samplers got executed. Okay, all the 7 samplers got executed. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Wonderful. then it has executed the logout. So the first iteration, everything which is there over here is executed without any pending. Okay, without any pending. Now again the launch login and all the 7 samplers and then the logout. So second iteration also, everything which is there over here executed. Now let's look at the third iteration, launch login and all the 7 samplers and logout. All the samplers which are there over here got executed for the third iteration as well. Now you concentrate for the fourth iteration as to what has happened. Okay, launch login and nothing in the throughput is executed, and then immediately it has executed the logout. And then again the fifth iteration, if you look at it, launch login and logout. So since you put the throughput controller as 3, everything which is there inside this will be executed how many times? Only 3 times. Everything else, you're expecting that everything will be executed for 5 times, because the loop count you have given for 5 iterations. The loop count you have given for 5 iterations. So you're expecting that everything over here will be executed 5 times. But what is happening? Since the throughput controller you have put it as 3 times, everything which is there inside this will be executed 3 times. Okay, and remaining everything else will be executed 5 times. This is how the throughput controller works. So it will control what's there in the throughput controller. It will control the number of executions. So if you say per user, so here we have given only 1 user. So 1 user out of 5 iterations, it has executed 3 iterations. But if I say if I say 2 users, so overall launch login, you expect it to run for 10 times. For user 1 it will run 5 times. For user 2 it will run 5 times. So this you are expecting you to execute 10 times. Expecting you to execute 10 times. But here in the throughput controller, so how many times it will execute, guys? How many times it will execute? Look at the options very clearly. Throughput you said 3. Okay, you didn't enable this option called per user. So now you tell me how many times the samplers over here, let's take only one sampler, which is click on fish 34. How many times this will be executed? Option 1, it will be executed 3 times. Option 2, it will be executed 6 times, because first user you expect it to run 3 times, second user you expecting it to run 3 times. So overall you expect this one to run 6 times. That is option 2. Option 3, since you didn't enable per user, it will still execute 3 times. It will still execute 3 times. This one will execute 3 times, not 6 times. So option 1, you expect it to execute 10 times. Option 2, expect it to execute 6 times, because you are executing it for 2 users. So first user 3 times, second user 3 times. So option 2, you're expecting it to execute 6 times. Option 3, you're expecting you to you're expecting it to execute 3 times. 1 or 2 or 3, guys? Quickly tell me. Okay, so 737 is when you started giving the answer. Okay, 737. So most of you said it will execute. Okay, 737. Most of you're expecting that it will execute for 6 times. To be honest, guys, it's option 3. It will execute only 3 times, because you didn't enable per user. So even though you are running it for 2 users and the throughput is 3 times, so you said per first user it will be 3 times, second user it will be 3 times, so overall you execute it for 6 times. No, it will still execute for 3 times, because you haven't enabled it. Okay, had you enabled this, it will execute for 6 times. Okay, but since you didn't enable it, it will execute only for 3 times. If you don't believe it, okay, so not a problem. I'll quickly run it and see it visually with your own eyes. Okay, so you see, click on fish, it is executing the first time. Okay, and then click on fish, it has executed the second time. Okay, and then click on fish, it has executed the third time. And you see if any 34s are there. No 34s are there. Okay, there are no more 34s. Only 3 times it has executed. 34 and then 34. Okay, now you might be wondering one more thing. Okay, so I have proved the point that even though there are 2 users, since you have not enabled per user, it will go ahead and execute only 3 times, which has done, you see, 1, 2, and then 3. That's about it. Okay, and one more thing, Kumar. After launch login, you expect to execute click on fish 34, then 35 should be executed, but while launch is executed. After 34, 35 should be executed while launch is executed. Anybody wants to unmute themselves and try to answer this one? Okay. Is that a valid question, guys? You just say why or no. Is that a valid question, whatever I asked? I expect that, when you see something like this, immediately I thought, you will go ahead and ask that question. Okay.
It will act, Kumar, it will act as like, reduce was point kind of thing in our LoadRunner concept. So there we mentioned per user, right? So there we have checked. So that's what it will wait for the next user. It will pick the next user actually.
Wonderful. Okay, it has nothing to do with the per user, but what has happened is user 1 has started and it has started executing these 3 samplers. As the user 1 has executed these 3 samplers, user 2 has started and it started executing its own work, which is launch, and this is the work of user 2. This is the work of user 1. User 1 is continuing to execute what it is executing. You see, launch, login, 34, 35, 36, and then 37, 38, 39, 40. This is the work of user 1. This is the work of user 2. Okay, you see, how do you know, Kumar, that this is the work of user 1, this is the work of user 2? Don't worry, guys. If you click on it and you see 1 of 1, okay, 1 of 1, this is the user 1. Okay, and this is, you see, 1 of 1, this is the work of user 1. This is 1 of 1, this is the work of user 1. And you see, this is 1 of 2, this is the work of user 2. Are you understanding, guys? Are you understanding? Okay, and you see, this is the work of user 1 again. This is the work of user 2 again. So this user 1 and user 2 will work concurrently, simultaneously. So user 1 has started and it has started the work, and then user 2 has started little late. Okay, little late. User 2 has, even though you said the ramp up period is 1 second, which means that both the users should start immediately, concurrently, but there is a little gap between the user 1 and user 2. By the time the user 2 has started, user 1 has already started working on the script and executed the samplers. So user 1 is not starting the launch. User 2 is starting the launch. Okay, so user 1 is doing its work according to how the script is there. But this log will show you the work of user 1 and user 2. That's the reason why you see all the samplers are jumbled up. To be honest, they are not. User 1 is doing its work according to the script and user 2 is doing its work according to the script. Are we clear, guys, as to why you are seeing all these samplers jumbled up when executed? Are we clear, guys? All of you? Yeah? How do I know which user has executed? Just click on that and you will be able to see the user work here. Okay? And also at the later point of time, I will tell you what is this one. At this point of time, I will not be. This has something to do with the thread group. Had I had 2 thread groups, okay, now I'll do one more thing. This is related to the thread group. I have only one thread group, which is by fish. Okay, so this first number that you see over here is representing that thread group. Since I have only one thread group, this will always be 1 for all of them. You see, the first number will be 1 for all of them. Okay, the second number, after hyphen, whatever this one is there, this represents the users. Since I have two users, this number will change between 1 and 2, but this will always be 1 because I have only one thread group. Oh, is that Kumar? Show it to me. Okay, so let me create one more thread group just that I can show it to you. Okay, so and this view results tree, now you see, okay, this view results tree is there on the test plan level, so which means that this view results tree will capture whatever is happening. Okay, let me say this is by dog. Okay, by dog. Okay, so now this view results tree is there on the test plan level, so it will capture the activity which is happening in this test plan, sorry, in this thread group, and it is also capture the activity which is there on this particular thread group. Okay, but had this been in this particular thread group level, so it will capture only the activity which is there on this particular thread group, which is by fish. Okay, but what I have done, I have added this listener, which is view results tree, on the test plan level, so it will capture the activity of both these threads. Okay, so I'll add a dummy sampler. Okay, some dummy sampler. Now I don't want it to record anything over here. Okay, so let me see if I have any dummy sampler. Okay, something should be there. Can you see anything called dummy, D-U-M-M-Y? Okay, there should be dummy sampler. I can't remember where it is. Okay. Oh, weird. Okay, debug sampler is there, flow control, JRS, Axis, Bean Shell, Bolt, FTF, JDP, JMS, Java. Oh, how come I missed it? Anyways, so let me create some request. Okay, so HTTP request is there. Okay, I'll say dummy. Okay, and I'll not pass anything. I'll not pass anything, just like that. Okay. Um, Now you see for this dummy sampler, and then I'll say 1 of 1 and all that. Okay, now let me go ahead and execute. Okay, let's see. I just wanted to see what happens for this dummy sampler. How does it represents for these dummy samplers? Okay, for launch it is saying 1, and this one represents the thread group is what I'm saying, and this one represents the what do I say? This one represents the users. Okay, but if I go to dummy sampler, immediately you see here it says 2 because this is the second thread group. So this represents the thread group and this represents the user. So ByDog is the second thread group in my test plan. So it says 2. It says 2. And ByFish is the first one. So ByFish it says 1, and you see ByDog it says 2. So this represents the thread group. This represents the user. Are we clear, guys? If you're trying to understand what is this one, Kumar, you told me what it was, but what is this one? You never told me. So if you had that kind of doubt, I hope now I made it clear. Immediately by looking at it, if it says 1, so this particular sampler belongs to the first thread group. If it says 2, it belongs to second thread group. If I have third thread group, it says 3. Okay, and this represents the user. Okay, are we clear with that, guys? All of you? Are we clear with that? All of you? Okay, anyways, so let me delete this one. Okay, this is of no use for me at this point of time. Just wanted to. All these simple things will be very useful when you troubleshoot. There are any issues, then you know for which thread group this sampler belongs to, which user this problem is happening. Immediately you can look at it. Okay, it's very important to understand these small details. Okay, which makes you very comfortable when you troubleshooting the issues and all that. Okay. Wonderful. Okay, now I have explained about the throughput controller. We are not done yet. We were looking at the total number of executions, but instead of that, I'll say percentage of executions. Percentage of executions, I'll say 50%. I'll say 50%. I'll say 50%, and then here I'll say 6. And then to understand the thing, to make the things simple, I'll put this as 1. Okay, I'll put this as 1. There is only one user. It will execute 6 iterations, and I'm said this one is the 50%. So the percentage 50 of what? So it should be of something, right? The percentage should be of something. 50% of what? Number of users. 50% is number of iterations, on the number of iterations. So what, guys? Can you tell me 50% on the number of users or 50% on the number of iterations? Option 1, 50% on the number of users. Option 2, 50% on the number of iterations. 1 or 2? Quickly, guys. Okay, it's not a okay. Some of them it says it's a number of users. Some of them are saying it's a number of number on iterations. Okay, so now I'll say okay, I given only one user. So 50% of 1 is 0.5. So 0.5 users it cannot exist, to be honest. Okay, but let's see what happens here. If you go with option 2, 6 users, 50% of 6 will be 3. So let me see if it executes for 3 iterations. Okay, now let's go ahead and execute, guys, and see what it will capture. Before that, I'll clear all the log in the view results tree. So let me go ahead and execute. Okay, so okay, You see, if you concentrate well, it is 50% on the number of iterations. Okay, 50% on the number of iterations. Had it been 50% on the users, so it would have been 0.5. If you round it off, it would have been 1, and it should have executed 6 times. But here it will execute only 3 times. As you can see here, you see 1, 2 and 3. It has executed only 3 times. So this percentage that you give, which is 50%, is 50% on the number of iterations, guys. 50% on the number of iterations. Wonderful. Okay, and also if you pay attention, okay, the first iteration, it didn't executed whatever is there in the throughput, it has skipped it, okay, because it has executed only launch, login, okay, and then logout. Second iteration, it has picked up whatever is there in the throughput. You see launch, login, and all the samplers, okay, and then logout. Again, the third iteration, it has skipped it. Fourth iteration, it has picked up because you said 50%. So once it is not doing it, once it is not picking up what's there in the throughput controller, once it is picking up, because you said 50%, right? 50% it will not do this, 50% it will do this. So first time it didn't executed all the iteration, all the samplers which is there in this one. Second time it has executed, third time it didn't, fourth time it has, fifth time it didn't, sixth time it has executed. So that's how the throughput controller will work if you put it in the percentage mode. Again, if you do it per user, it will do it per user, otherwise overall it will do. Okay, so it's better you always go with per user in case you are doing the throughput controller. Okay, so in the interview, so one of the student was asked this question. There is certain instead of saying samplers, there is certain section of the script which should be exactly executed 30% of the overall script. It should be exactly executed 30% of the overall script. Then the answer is actually very, very simple. A lot of people think that you have to do some programming and all that, but the answer is very, very simple. Just add a throughput controller and run it in the percentage mode and give 30% to it, and move all the samplers that you want to execute for 30% inside this throughput controller, and it will execute that percentage only to only that piece of code. It will execute to 30%. Okay, 30%. So this is what I can tell you guys. Okay. Are we clear with this throughput controller, guys? So sometimes these are being asked in the interviews. That's the reason why I'm covering all of it, guys. Okay, very subtly they will ask this kind of questions in the interview. Okay, so it said certain section of your script you want to execute for 20%, and everything else it should execute 100%. Then simply say add a throughput controller, put it as 30%, and then move all the samplers related to that inside this throughput controller. That's what your answer should be. Okay. So guys, if I'm going little fast, please let me know, guys. Okay, please let me know. So this is what is the throughput controller. Okay, now you see once only controller. Okay, this is also a very, very good feature, a once only controller. Okay, whatever is there in that particular controller, it will execute only once. Okay, it will only execute. You see, once only controller executes its child elements only once per thread, or you can say per thread, or thread means what? User, guys. Okay, thread means what? Virtual user. Okay. So per user it will execute only once. Okay, so you see this is typically used to perform logins or any other use case that needed to be executed only once per user session. Okay, the once only controller should be the child element of the throughput group and or loop controller. Okay, so you see it should be a child element of thread group or a loop controller, otherwise it will behave in the behavior is not defined. Okay, so now you see carefully, guys, you see carefully. So I will instead of this simple controller over here, I'll move this to what do I say, only once only controller. Okay, once only controller. So which means that okay, hang on, I don't want to insert, I just want to change this. Okay, change the parent controller to once only controller. Where is once only controller? Now this login is there is once only controller, which means that this launch and login happens only once. And here I'll say 6 iterations instead of throughput controller. Okay, I'll change this to simple controller. Okay, I'll change this to simple controller. Okay, now you see whatever is there over here, it is adding. I'll put it to change. Hang on, guys, 1 second. Change the controller to simple controller. Okay, so this is what purchase a fish or buy a fish. Okay, it's quite efficient. Now you see this login is only once controller, which means that it will be executed only once. And this one, okay, you say that it's a simple controller, so it will execute 6 times. Whatever is there here, it will execute 6 times. Logout, let's assume, is also a simple controller. It will execute 6 times. Now let's see what happens. Let's see how this login actually works, guys. Let's see how this login actually works. So login will happen. Okay, for now let me disable or whatever, disable this logout part, guys. Let me disable this logout part. Okay, so now you see, carefully observe, this login is once only controller, and whatever is there in the simple controller, it's there. Now you are running overall this for 6 iterations. Check what's happening here. Okay, the expectation is, since it's once only controller, this launch and login will execute only once, but this one will execute 6 times. This one will execute 6 times. Okay, let's watch this very carefully here. Okay, launch login, it has executed only once, but here to here it has executed 6 times. Here to here it has executed 6 times. Okay, here to here it has executed 6 times. Okay, here to here it has executed 6 times. So executed 6 times. I mean, everything will be executed 6 times. You see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, so this is executed only once, but everything else is executed 6 times. This is, as I said, only typically for logins and those sort of things we can use this once only control. Okay, maybe you can implement that in your projects. In case you don't want it to log in multiple times, you just put once only controller and you're good to go, guys. And you are good to go. Okay, are we clear with this concept, guys? Are we clear with this one, all of you? Once only controller. In case if I'm going too fast, let me go. Let me tell you. I mean, please bring it up, guys. So it's an integrity violation with the same data that you see, it's a SQL integrity constant violation, which means that with the same data without logging out, okay, you haven't logged out, right? You haven't logged out. So without logging out, again, you're trying to book with the same kind of data, and then that's why it is doing the integrity. I mean, there is some issues with it, and that's the reason why the sampler has failed. Had I logged out, then I wouldn't have gotten this problem and this wouldn't have failed. Okay, if you look at the response data for this payment details 31, it is clearly saying that it's an integrity issue. Okay, integrity violation issues. When do you have integrity violation issues? When you're trying to insert the data, when you're trying to do the same thing over and over again. Okay, had I logged out, it wouldn't have had these issues. Since I didn't do a logout, it is having the issues. So it's not problem with the script, it's the problem with the way I'm running the script. Okay, so for now I can ignore these issues. Okay, wonderful. Wonderful, guys. So okay, so we are, any questions so far, guys? Any questions so far? Okay, so assume that there are no questions. Okay, let me proceed further. So let's look at, am I going fast, guys? Okay, let me ask you this question. I'm going too fast today, or the pace is okay with you? Guys, please respond. Okay, only if you respond, I know whether am I going fast or slow, because I thought these are very simple and easy to understand. So maybe I'm going a little fast, but as long as you understand, I'm okay. Okay, thank you. Okay, wonderful, guys. Now once only controller is done, okay, so this is what is very important, guys. You might have to use this in the real-time projects as well. Okay. Okay, so watch carefully, guys. For this particular, to demonstrate this one, okay, I need to completely mess up the script. Okay, so let me assume that, okay, I have 3 simple controllers. Okay, I have 3 simple controllers. Okay, so I'll add one more simple controller here. Okay, one more simple controller, and here we have a buy a fish, and this one, let's assume it is buy a dog. Ideally you wanted to record everything related to the dog inside this. Okay, so buy a dog. Okay, so there is a buy a fish, buy a dog, and then let's say you have organized your script in this way. Okay, so and there is one more simple controller, and you say buy a reptile. Okay, so now you see there is login. Okay, and you have buy a reptile, buy a dog, buy a fish, and then there is logout. Disable that, enable that, enable that. Okay, enable that. Okay, ideally you wanted to record the script of buy a reptile, whatever is there inside this one, and whatever the script for buy a dog, that piece of code you have to record. But for now, okay, I'll pass on the same samplers into both of them. Okay, just let's assume that all these samplers is buy a reptile. Okay, all these samplers is buy a dog. Okay, let me put the naming policy over here. So you see, this is buy a reptile, let's assume, and then this is buy a dog. Okay, let's assume. Okay, and this is buy a reptile, let's assume. Okay, you have recorded, and you have recorded the piece of code for buy a reptile, and it is inside this one. You have recorded the piece of code for buy a dog, and it is here, and buy a fish, let's say it is over here. Okay, now now you have a login. Then it will, if you execute the script as it is, it will, and assume that the real piece of code is there in this buy a reptile, even though I have copied the piece of code from buy a fish inside this just for demonstration purposes. But ideally in the real world, what you would have done, you would have captured or you have recorded buy a reptile piece of code inside this one, and buy a dog piece of code into this one. Okay, let's assume this is the real code which will actually purchase a reptile in case you execute this one, and this is also a real code. Let's assume if you execute, it will purchase a dog. Let's assume in those terms. Okay, instead of here, if I say fish, dog, it will work, guys. Okay, I need not have to record, just change the fish to dog, fish to reptile, it will work, and give the category ID of the relevant category ID over here, it will work. Okay, but I don't want it to make all those changes at this point of time. Okay, now you see carefully, guys, let's watch this very carefully. Okay, let's look at this one. Okay, now for whatever the reason, I don't want it, if I execute as it is, first it will go ahead and execute the login, then it will purchase the reptile, then dog, then fish, and then it will log out. Then it will go ahead and log out. But for whatever the reason, I want to buy only one of them. Per iteration, I wanted to execute only one of them. Okay, it has to log in. Then after logging in, it has to execute only one of them, not all the three of them, and log out. Let's say you have faced this situation. Okay, interview also, almost every interview they're asking this question. Okay, pay attention, guys. So here login and logout should execute all the time, but here in these three, reptile, dog, and fish, only one of them should execute per iteration. Per iteration, only one of them should execute. How do we do it? Okay, let's say you're running it for 6 times. Now what I do is I will add a controller called Interleave controller here. What do you say? Interleave controller. Okay. Okay, and in the interleave controller, I will move all these three samplers, three controllers. Now what it will do, okay, it will pick only one of them. It will pick only one of them per iteration. They are executing 6 iterations. So first iteration, it will execute reptile only, not dog or fish. Then it will log out. Then the second iteration, it will execute the dog, not reptile, not fish, and then it will log out. Third iteration, it will log in, and then it will pick up the fish, not both of them, and then log out. Okay, let's see it visually with our own eyes. Okay, okay. Okay, so first it has done a launch login, then it has executed only this particular controller, which is buy a reptile, and then it has logged out. Then it has executed only the dog, you see, only the dog, okay, and logged out. Okay, third time, okay. Okay, so third time, first it has executed the reptile, second it has executed the dog, third it has executed the fish. Okay, it has executed the fish, then it came back, executed the reptile, then dog, then fish. Okay, that's how the interleave controller works, guys. That's how the interleave controller works. Are we clear this? Are we clear with this one? Okay, so interleave controller will work only one of them. It will pick only one of them. Okay, first it will pick the first one, then it will pick the second one, then it will pick the third one. Okay. Okay, interleave across the threads means it will do it for all the users as well. Okay, so this is how the interleave controller will work. You can play around more, and then you play around with these options to understand what these options. It is not too difficult for you to understand these options, guys. Okay, it's pretty simple. You run it with multiple threads and you see how the things are working. How the things are working. Okay. My only concern over here is I expect that after logout it will go back and run login, not the interleave controller, because you're running it for 6 iterations and all these iterations applicable to all of them. So this is what I'm little confused here. After logout, I expect that it will go ahead and execute the login, but that's not what it is doing, which is so weird. Okay, so I'll look into that later, guys. I'll look into that later. What I'm expecting is the login launch should execute multiple times. After logout, again it should log in. Then it will go to the interview controller and then it will run it. Because the 6 iterations that you have defined, okay, oh, same user for 8 iterations, that's the problem. Maybe that's the problem. Okay, so hang on please. No, that's not the issue. Okay, so this launch login should always, after logout, again this one should happen, which is not happening. Okay, this should execute and then it should logout. It is executing all the 6 times. Okay, which is what my expectation is. Okay, but login also should execute for 6 times, which is not working. Any ideas, guys, as to why it is not working? You can unmute. Oh, this is in. Oh, okay, okay,
controller.
yeah. Okay, it should be simple. Thank you, guys. Okay, it should be in the simple controller. That's what the issue is. Thank you. Okay, wonderful, guys. Now it will execute. Okay, so it was only once only controller. That was the issue actually. Okay, that was the issue. Okay, wonderful catch. Wonderful catch. This one, right? You say change to simple control. Okay, you don't need that one. Okay, so now you see it will run as per our expectations. You see launch login, then the reptile, logout, then launch login, then the dog, then logout, launch login, then the fish, okay, then logout, okay, then launch login, then the reptile again, okay, logout, then dog, then fish. Okay, so interleave controller means only one of them. That too, it will pick up sequentially. You see, first it is picking up reptile. First iteration, it is picking up only reptile. Second iteration, it is picking up only dog. Third iteration, it is picking up fish. Nothing there. So it went back to reptile, dog, fish, reptile, dog, fish. That's how it is. And it will go sequentially. You see, whatever is there first, that will be executed for the first iteration. Then this is for the second iteration. And this is for the third iteration, if you have noticed that. Okay, if you have noticed that. Wonderful, guys. Wonderful. Okay, this is how the interleave controller works. Okay, now let me see if there is anything there here. Okay, I've already executed. Okay. Okay, so if you wanted to see how the values will be picked up for multiple threads, okay, you can run it with 2 threads or 2 users, each one run for 2 iterations only. Let's see how does it work. Okay. Okay, so let it complete, then I'll explain, guys. Okay, so you see launch it is for the first user, login is for the first user, this launch is for the second user, and this reptile, it is picking up for the first user. Okay, all this is okay, and then this one is from the second user. Second user is also executing the reptile, first user is also executing the reptile. Okay, and once they have logged out, again the first user has picked up the dog. Okay, second user has also picked up the dog. That's how the second user. How do I know? By looking at this number here. By looking at clicking on this sampler, and by looking at this number, I would know which user is doing what. Which user is doing what. So that's how it is. I was just thinking, is there an easier way wherein it will sort out based on the users? I tried that, guys. It didn't work out. Okay, this will always be jumbled up, and clicking on it, I'll know this sampler belongs to which user by paying attention to this number. But otherwise, I wouldn't know. I mean, is there a way to sort out? I couldn't figure it out, to be honest. Okay, I don't think the Jmeter is smart enough, or they have given them any options to sort out based on the users. Okay, I couldn't do that. If any of you are aware of it, the log, sorting out the log based on the users, you can tell me. Okay, so now this is what it is. Okay, so let me change this to one user again. Okay, and wonderful. So this is what is about the interleave controller. Okay, so let me take a break, guys. I know I've joined little late. I'm taking a break, early break. Okay, so after the break, what we can do is we will go back and look into the other controllers. Okay, we'll look into the other controllers, guys. Okay. Okay, we'll look into the something called random controller. Again, this is very useful in the intermince, and random order control. And let's look at the difference of these two as well. Okay, very, very handy. Random controller and random order controller. Okay, and then switch control. Let's try to cover all these three today if possible. Okay, all these three if possible today. Okay, so let me take a break, guys. We'll come back after the break. Expect the break to be close to 10 minutes. Okay, I'm just muting. I'm not stopping the recording. So guys, are you able to hear me? Can one of you please confirm if you're able to hear me? Okay, thank you. Okay, so let's look at the random controller here. Okay, the random controller is similar to interleave controller, except that the order of interleaving is random instead of sequential. Earlier, what we have seen is in the interleave controller. Okay, so the order is sequential. Okay, so order is sequential as in first, for the first iteration, it will pick up reptile, second iteration dog, third iteration fish. But here in the random controller, it will pick up one of these randomly. First iteration, it will not have to be reptile, it could be any one of the three. Second iteration also, it could be any one of the three. Even though it is a repetition, it could be any one of the three. Third also similar, fourth also similar. Okay, so let's go ahead and quickly look at it as to how this works. Okay, so instead of simple controller, let me change this to transaction controller, so that this would be better. In general, this would be in the real world, it would, I mean, it's not a transaction controller. Actually, this should be a simple controller itself. Okay. Okay. Transaction controller means like inside this, okay, inside this one, these two can go into one transaction controller, these two can go into one transaction controller. This should be a simple controller itself. Okay, now here instead of interleave controller, what do? I'll change this to a random controller. Now see it with your own eyes how the things will work out, or how the things will be executed. Now overall, let's say I wanted to execute this for 6 iterations. Okay, 6 iterations. Only thing is, in the random controller also, only one of these 3 will be executed per iteration. Per iteration, only one of these 3 things will be executed, or one of these 3 controllers will be executed. But the thing is, the order will be random. Okay, maybe the first iteration it could be fish, second iteration it could be again fish, third iteration could be reptile, fourth iteration could be fish, fifth iteration could be dog. Randomly it will pick one of these controller. Okay, per iteration it will be only executing one, but that one could be any one of these 3, because all these 3 is there in the random controller. Okay, so let me go ahead and execute it, demonstrate it for you so that you can clearly understand. Okay, so let it execute for all the 6 iterations to tell you what is happening here. Okay, probably the class is little boring, some of the students have already left. Okay, so it's okay guys. So this is actually not boring, to be honest. If you pay attention, you're looking at the complete power of Jmeter. Okay, without writing a single line of program, okay, there is so much that you can do in Jmeter. There's so much that you can do in Jmeter. I mean, if LoadRunner, all this by default is not available. You have to write the programs for each of the things which I'm giving here. For achieving that in LoadRunner, you have to write the programs. But here, everything, I mean, the Jmeter is so wonderful that everything is built in. I mean, everything, whatever you feel you have to do, to be honest, it's all been given. If you learn Jmeter well, very, very, very rarely you have to write any piece of code. Okay, and whatever the piece of code that you have to write, again, it's all available in online. You have to just search it, copy paste the stuff. Okay, but honestly speaking, if you learn the Jmeter in and out, most of the things that you have to do in the real-time projects, it's already, all the options are already given to you, to be honest. Okay, and every day you look at it, the versions are changing, which means that they're making it more and more simple for you overall. Okay, okay, so you see, now you see the first time it has executed the launch and login. Okay, it has executed the launch and login. Okay, maybe the students have left. Let me send out a message saying that. Okay, so that they might see it and come back. Okay, see that. Okay, now you see, so first iteration, instead of reptile, dog is executed. Second iteration, okay, you're expecting that dog should be executed, but reptile is executed. Third iteration, fish is executed. Then the fourth iteration, again fish is executed. Okay, because randomly it can execute anything. Even though it is repeating, you cannot control it. Fifth iteration, dog. Again sixth iteration, fish. Okay, so you see, first iteration dog, second iteration reptile, third fish, fourth fish, fifth dog, sixth fish. Okay, so you see, randomly it will pick one of them and execute, even though it might be repeating. You see, Out of 6 iterations, 3 iterations, fish only got executed. You can't control. Randomly it will pick up something and it will execute. Okay, if you have some requirement like that, then probably you can do this. Probably you can add those samplers or controllers into this random controller and have it executed Okay, so if they said that, okay, there is reptile, dog, fish, randomly it has to purchase your script out of 1000 iterations. So randomly it has to purchase different things. 1000 iterations, sometimes reptile, sometimes dog, sometimes fish, that too randomly. So you can put all this into the random controller so that it will randomly pick one of them, and then it will create a real-time scenario sort of thing for you. Okay, because different people will purchase different things, and that too randomly. So you can do that, and maybe you can run this for multiple users as well, so that it will pick up random. Okay, this is very regularly used once, to be honest, guys, to simulate a scenario as close to the real world as possible. So I would advise to go with the random controller. I would advise you to go with the random controller, guys. Okay, are we okay, guys? Are we okay, all of you? Okay, wonderful, guys. So now to execute the random order controller, guys. So I cannot use this kind of scenario. I would have to explain it in some other way. But let me see, random controller, everything is covered. Yes. Okay. Let me go to the random order controller. Okay. So random order controller is the order in which the child elements will be executed. All of them will be executed, but the order of this will change. Okay. Order of this will change. So maybe by using this same scenario, I'll try to execute the random order controller. Let's see what happens. Okay, change this controller to random order controller. Okay, change this controller to random order controller. Now the order in which this will be executed will change, but all of them will be executed. Okay, every iteration, all the 3 of them will be executed, but the order in which they are, that will change. Okay, so that's what is a random order controller. Random controller means it will pick up only one of them randomly. Random order means all the 3 will be executed, but the order in which they will be executed will change. Okay, so let's see how it works. Launch login. First it is executing the dog, then it is executing the fish, then it is executing the reptile, then it is logging out. Again login, second iteration, executing the reptile, fish and dog, and log out. Then again third iteration, this is the third iteration, guys. Logged in, okay, then it is executing the fish, then reptile, then dog. The order is fish, reptile, dog, then it has executed the logout. Then again fifth iteration, launch, login, it has executed. Then you see the order here is now reptile, okay, dog and fish. It seems to be sequential over here. Okay, then logout. Then again sixth iteration, you see login has executed, but this time around the order is fish, then reptile, then dog. Okay, then logout. The last one, again it has logged in, it has executed the fish, okay, dog and reptile, fish, dog and reptile. So the order in which this will be executed will change for each iteration. In case if you have that kind of any requirement, I don't know, or in the realistic world, where you can face that kind of situation or something like that. But if you face some situation like that, wherein the order in which this stuff or the controllers or the samplers need to change from iteration to iteration so that it will simulate the real world, then probably you can use this random order control. Okay, where we can use it, I can't really think of something. I'm just thinking of something like that where we can use the order in which it changes. Okay, so yeah, maybe this one itself, book, dog, fish, instead of, you want all the 3 of them needs to be executed, but for whatever the reason, okay, you don't want for all the users, you don't want the order to be same. The user 1, the order should be something else, the user 2 order should be something else, the user 3 order should be something else. I mean, that's what would happen in the real world as well. If somebody has to buy all the 3 of them, they might not buy all the users might not buy in the same order. So for different users, you wanted to change the order. Okay, then this is what you can do. And if some of the people have already done performance testing, maybe Anil or something like that, they can think of in their projects, if there is any scenario or situation, Narendra is there, Gaurav Date is there, you're all doing performance testing, guys. So in your situations or in your projects, had you faced any situation wherein all the things which are there needs to be executed, but the order in which it has to be executed has to change from iteration to iteration or user to user? Have you faced any situations like that, guys, in your real-time projects? We have Abdul today didn't join, but we have Abhijit, who is real time, Anil real time is there, Divakar is real time, Gaurav, you are all working. Okay, Namrata, you're also working. Okay, so Narendra, you're working as well. Raghu, you are working. Okay, have you faced any situation as such wherein wherein the order in which needs to change from iteration to iteration? Very, very rarely you might have to use these guys. You see, all these guys are real-time folks, though they haven't faced such a situation. But in case if you have faced something like that, wherein the order needs to change, okay, then probably you can use this random order. In my experience, never I faced this situation wherein the order in which needs to change. This random controller has changed. Only one of them needs to be picked, that too randomly. Okay, that kind of situation I've faced. Okay, like this one only, buy reptile, dog, fish. Each user need not have to buy all of them, but each user have to buy one of them, and it need not have to be sequential. It can be randomly. Any user can purchase anything random. So this random controller, almost every scenario I have faced. Okay, so all the users need not have to buy all of them. Each user have to buy only one of them and pick randomly, like some of them reptiles, dogs, or fish, or something like that. Okay, that kind of scenario multiple times I have faced it. So random order is regular, random controller is regularly used, but random order controller, the order in which all will be executed, but the order in which it changes, very, very rarely. But Jmeter, look at the thought process of these guys. Even though they made this tool freely available to us, but they thought that some people might have this kind of use, so they have added this. Okay, wonderful, guys, wonderful. Okay, so any questions, guys? In the meanwhile, I'll be looking at something. I came across something. Okay, so I'm just playing around with something, guys. Don't ignore that. Okay. So one of the students recently asked me a question that after executing the whole test, something needs to execute at the end. So he was asking me how to do it. So that's the reason why I was just exploring this one. Maybe thread lifetime is what I mean. You have to put the samplers in this new thread, and maybe they have to say delay the thread creation until needed, or specify the lifetime, something like that. Maybe he has to use it. Okay. Anyways. Okay, so let me guys, let's continue. Okay, so Gaurav is giving me a reason. Gaurav, you can unmute yourself and you can say, okay, whatever you wanted to mention, because there's so much that you have put. It's kind of hard to understand. You have the speakers handy. Maybe you can say you can
Uh,
talk.
Hi Kumar. What I'm trying to say is we usually create separate scenarios for
Okay,
different number of like we are using
purchase,
randomly, right?
right.
So usually we create separate scenarios and using throughput controller we manage it. Which scenario will be used first? How many percentage? Like that.
Mhm. Okay, okay. So use the throughput controller as well.
Yeah.
Okay, okay. But you want the control on each one of them to see exactly this many times it has to execute, then what you said might be true. So you create different scripts, which means that you create different thread groups, okay? And then using the throughput controller, you'll say that it has to execute only this many times. Okay,
Correct.
that's
Correct. Yes. Yes. Correct.
way of doing it. Okay, I agree with you. Okay, but that will give you exactly, you can control the number of iterations, number of times the reptiles will run, number of times the dog will run, number of times the fish will run. Okay, that's what it is, right?
Yes. Yes. Correct. Correct.
I agree. Okay, that makes sense as well. But if you don't want any control on that, maybe this is what people use. Random controller you can put, and you can put it here. So more or less, you're running it for 1,000 iterations. This will run exactly 33%. This will run 33%. This will run 33%. Jmeter is smart enough to do that. more or less. Okay, so if you see that all of them randomly it should pick, and then all of them should be in certain percentages, yeah, what you said. Or instead of creating completely different thread groups, you can have different simple, you can add the throughput controller to all of them in the same thread group, and you can do that as well. Okay, maybe that will also work, I think, Gaurav. Look into it. Okay, think about it. Okay, but what you're
Yeah,
doing is also
yeah,
important.
we'll try it that.
Okay, but whatever you are doing it, right, in that case, for each iteration, all the I mean, for each iteration the reptile will go, since they are different thread groups, you run with different number of users, so for each iteration it will execute. Okay, I got it, what you're doing. Wonderful. That is also different ways of doing it. Okay, there are so many ways of doing it, but whatever you are doing, it makes sense if you want to absolutely control the throughput or the output or the total number of executions for each one of them. Okay, but maybe you can give it a shot, this one as well, and talk to your lead, if this works for you. Okay, if you yourself is the lead, maybe look into it as to what we are doing logically, if this makes sense to you more than what you are doing. Okay, but eventually, Gaurav, in whichever way you are designing your test, eventually you wanted to achieve certain number of output for each one of them. Okay, so that is the final agenda. Okay, and one more thing, guys. Do you want me to control or do you want me to stop it here? Sorry, do you want me to continue or do you want me to stop it here? It's totally up to you guys. So because I see some of the people are leaving, so I'm concerned about it. So should we continue or should we stop it here? Okay. So because I've given you so much information today, so it might be overwhelming is what I'm thinking. I'm worried. Going back to work. Okay, everybody is saying stop. So let's stop today. Tomorrow join definitely, guys, because tomorrow I'm going to talk about the user-defined variables, which are extremely important. Okay, which are extremely important. Tomorrow I'm going to talk about the user-defined variables. Maybe give you a hint as to what it is, so that you can play. I mean, you will be able to understand. Okay, so please join. A very important day tomorrow. Okay, we'll give you some definition, some insight into user-defined variables. Okay. So, Gaurav, can you call me once? Okay, if possible. And people who have questions, please stay back. I'll be able to clear your questions. Okay, Gaurav, is it okay if you can call me? Okay, after the class. So, any questions, guys, or can I stop here? Any questions? Okay, okay, guys. So let's stop it here. Okay. Thank you, Anil. I'll call you as well, Anil.